Let's think about this question. What if Mordremoth was a queen? In this video, I will be examining the overall narrative of Guild Wars 2's first expansion, Heart of Thorns, and reimagining it in a more classic chivalrous tale of two kingdoms, queendoms, at war, emphasizing and underlining this conflict with the already established biological and psychological horror Heart of Thorns brilliantly executed in its settings and tones. Now, disclaimer. This is purely for fun and not supposed to be taken all too seriously. The story is over and done with for about 5 years now. Also, this does not keep in mind budget constraints, technological constraints, time constraints, or any other extraneous circumstances which might affect narrative design in Guild Wars 2 and video games as a whole. If nothing makes sense, just blame it on timey. This is the work of just me with recommendations from my friend Smudgem, so this has not gone through multiple table reads a studio might do. With that out of the way, let us continue. Sleuthing through the various concept art pieces for early Mordremoth design, I noticed the gender identifier of she and her when referencing Mordremoth. Now, while in modern Tyria, the dragons are referred to as having no gender, the elder dragon Mordremoth has a special facet of having avatars, which are usually gendered. From what we know in modern days, the Sylvari are directly connected to Mordremoth, and this would include the avatar of the Paled Tree, who is referred to as she and her. Mordremoth's direct avatar tends to be more masculine with strong features and a deeper voice, so it would be safe to assume that he is of a male gender. As I personally was disappointed in his overall design and overall aesthetic, I got to wondering, what if the avatar of Mordremoth was also a woman to juxtapose or contrast the female model of the avatar of the Paled Tree? A queen versus queen storyline. This has led me down a rabbit hole of rethinking the entire narrative structure, theme, and narrative beats of this expansion. So, as a general grounding tool, let's go over the characters that would be the central and supporting foci of this reimagining of Guild Wars 2, Heart of Thorns, a tale of two queendoms. So for the cast, my primary antagonists that I focus on would be the Commander, Kaith, the Paled Tree, its avatar, Bram, and Marjorie. For the supporting protagonists, I would include Canuck, Timey, Ritlock, the Itzel army, represented by Ibli, the Newhawk army, represented by Tizlak, and the Exalted army, represented by Ruka. Now for the antagonists. This primary category would include Mordremoth, Stave Master Adrian, Blade Master Diarmid, Axe Master Harith, and Fallon, with the supporting antagonists of course being the Mordrem army and the denizens of the jungle's local flora and fauna, the Chalk army. This reimagining would focus on the parallels between three sets of characters, the Paled Tree to Mordremoth, Kaith to Fallon, and of course the Commander to Traherne, as the player's personal driving force. Bram and Marjorie would also have more stakes in this story, as they are both going after the monster who took their loved ones away from them. The supporting cast would fill out the rest of the jungle's narrative, with Canuck providing some comic quips to highlight the chaos, and also act as a slight respite in these dark jungles. Timey would be assisting with dragon weakness research, and would be there to reside over Rhodonovis. And Ritlock would return to showcase the new profession and assist in some areas of the climax of the narrative, utilizing what he learned in the mists to help during the dream collapse phase of the final fight. The Itzel, Newhawk, and Exalted would also receive more attention and come together leading up to the climax to aid in the final push to the Heart of Thorns tree through the coastal route, which was planned to be in the original game but didn't make the cut. As for the other antagonists, Mordremoth's commanders would each get more screen time, and each commander would get a spotlight for their own map. This would be in an effort to further give a character to Mordremoth and her army, as they are extensions of her own being through mind control and mental servitude. Now, let me dive into my fanficish write-up, beginning with the tale of two queendoms. This is a tale of two queendoms. Long ago, two sisters sprouted from the damp earth after a grand beast's slumber on the Cape of Maguma. Nestled together in the petals of their verdant home, these seedlings of consciousness developed under one dream, a dream of magic, curiosity, and instinct. One sister saw the dream with starry-eyed curiosity, examining the visions with great care, while the other sister allowed her wild instinct to call to her whenever the desire arose. Together, they explored the vast magics of the dream and shared their experiences as if they were one, and in this dream, they were. Until one vision came to a sister. Her curiosity could not keep her from looking away. She saw herself alongside her sister as they led an army across lands and brought devastation and horror to every creature that came in the path of their shadow. Horrified of what was to come from existing alongside one another, this sister detached her dream from the others, and as the dream ripped in two, she saw a single tear fall onto her sister's chest, where a thorn would then begin to grow in her heart. As their worlds in the dream drifted, so too did the seedlings in Maguma. The verdant petals fixing them as one unraveled, and one of the sisters was swept away from the sprout, landing in the ocean of Maguma, and was carried east. Being kissed by the morning sun, the seedling turned pale and appreciated the beauty of the world, while the other seedling, back on the Cape of Maguma, was wrapped tightly by the once verdant petals, now turned a dark violet hue, and was consumed by the earth, where it lay dormant, waiting for the future to call it to bloom.
It is time to come home.
This tale of two queendoms would serve as the backstory for a connection between the Pale Tree and Mordremoth, establishing a more personal vendetta and relationship, while perhaps hinting at the Sylvari's origination of curiosity and naivete, while Mordremoth having consistent imagery of thorns and, of course, the heart of thorns. Ideally, this would be exposition during the City of Hope chapter, but we will get there in due time. Prologue and exposition. The commander and company break through to Verdant Brink. This story mission is effectively the same, but has Casimir and Rox stay behind to help secure the passage of recovered Pact soldiers and scholars. The commander realizes that Rox and Casimir would work well as a duo to track and locate missing Pact members, and then portal them to safety, where they can then mend their wounds. Rox and Casimir would occasionally pop up around the beginning area of Verdant Brink in the open world, where they can be seen escorting wounded back to the Silver Wastes. The rest of the guild continues on in a similar fashion, now relying on the local Itzel and Newhawk as their guide, replacing Rox for her tracking skills. Act 1. The Jungle Provides would be renamed to The Thorns Eye. Stave Master Adrian would be guaranteed to be encountered here no matter which path you choose, as he's quite the pivotal character, where it would be revealed that Mordremoth has taken Logan, Zosha, Air, and Traherne deeper into the jungle, and that they have no chance of victory. Prisoners of the Dragon would have us make our way through the Mordrem bivouac, where we would ultimately meet up with Air and Fowlin. Kaith would also be present with the egg, but she's across the chasm heading into Orc Basin. She hangs around just long enough to see Fowlin be struck down by a Mordrem Vinetooth. She leaves in shock and out of self-preservation of herself and her wild hunt, the egg. Act 2. Prized possessions would see Kaith run into the quickly turned Fowlin as she emerges from the shadows in her Vinetooth form, petrifying Kaith with the revelation that she is alive, but no longer the love she once knew. Blade Master Diarmid is right alongside Fowlin. giving exposition as to how she's training the newly formed Fallon, as Mordremoth sees untapped potential in her. The mission continues as normal, with Diarmid stealthing in and out, providing more remarks about the chase and Fallon's progress in her new form. Fallon would also appropriately speak, as in the current game. After this chase, and in the mission City of Hope, we are more steadily introduced to the Exalted, the Luminant, and Tyrir. At the end of this mission, when we place the egg in the chamber, Kaith is with us as well, resulting in a tense back and forth between her and the commander. Ultimately, the conflict cools down, and Kaith just wishes to see the egg safely placed in the center of the chamber. In doing so, a burst of magic stretches to the heavens. As they exit the chamber to discuss the matter of defending the egg, and also attacking Mordremoth, the weak yet resolved avatar of the Pale Tree appears through a dream projection, similar to her powers back in the fight against Zaitan. As Kaith is near a hub of intense magic, and the Pale Tree can tap into her dream, she musters enough strength to materialize for brief moments. This is where the Pale Tree reveals to Kaith her history and relationship with Mordremoth, through the Tale of Two Queendoms story. In my fan fiction, this would be a beautifully cinematic cutscene. The avatar of Mordremoth and the avatar of the Pale Tree were the same entity, forming the heart and the mind of the elder dragon Mordremoth, the Pale Tree being the heart and Mordremoth being and keeping the mind. Upon the two forces of the heart and the mind splitting, the Pale Tree was able to become her own entity and grow in strength when Ronan found her and was influenced by Ventari's teachings. Ideally, it would be written that Ronan finds the Pale Tree from her journey from the Maguma Ocean and then through nature, the rivers and the animals. This seed plopped into a cave and Ronan found the Pale Tree. The Pale Tree is able to stick with Kaith and pops up every so often throughout the rest of the story. Towards the end of this act, Act 2, as the guild is heading into Tangled Depths to look for Radanovis, a new story mission would activate, the Thorns Blade. In this mission, Blade Master Diarmid would intercept you before heading further into the jungle, describing how she has already planted seeds in Tyrir to consume more of its magic via the Octavine, and that she has come to finish what Fallon could not at her young state. This would give more of a reasoning to the whole Octavine meta and connect it more directly to the core story. Diarmid shares more personality of her character, giving the commander a better sense of the enemies they face. In a fierce fight, you win, forcing Blade Master Diarmid to retreat back to her queen in the Heart of Thorns, all while taunting, "Your friends fit so well in their blighting trees." Act 3. In large, the beginning story of Act 3 would remain the same, with the local survivors pointing you to Takanuhawk, giving you indicators of where to travel to, as Rox would still be with Casimir. The chapter Buried in Sight would have Kaith and the Pale Tree pop up in the beginning, venturing alongside you. The commander, still holding a grudge, does not take kindly to Kaith coming along. Tiny astutely points out that because Kaith is here with a direct connection to the Pale Tree, albeit a very weak one, she might be useful in answering questions around the dragon studies conducted in Radanovis. Getting to the end and into the lab, they find studies that refer to Mordremoth's magic as being one that operates in a closed loop, much like the cycle of life. It lives and dies in its own being. But this is all that can be got from all the studies being conducted in Radanovis from those of Surin long ago. The Pale Tree theorizes, with the absorption of Zaitan's magic, it more readily keeps itself and its allies alive through reanimation via the blighting pods. Tami points out this is why they have seen the same Mordrem multiple times, even after killing them. This is viewed as an impossible situation, fighting a being that can only die from its own magical cycle, and one which holds reanimating properties. Do they wait for it to naturally die? If they do, the world would be consumed by the dragon's shadow. They do not even know if it will die, fall back into its slumber, or simply reanimate forever. With all hope and drive draining from the group, the Pale Tree pops out once more with a simple exclamation of, "Do not lose momentum. I know what must be done. Get me to Mordremoth." Upon these findings, the cast returns to the surface of Tekanuhawk, leaving behind Taimi to work on research. This would open up a new story mission, the Thorns Axe. Axemaster Harith marches with a fleet of Mordrem soldiers and mages onto the grounds of Tekanuhawk, hoping to gain it for Mordremoth as a stronghold. Axemaster reveals that the march on the world has begun, and the shadow of the dragon is stretching across the lands. In this fight, the commander, Tizlak, and Kana Pahwa, the leader of the New Hawk, which didn't get much screen time, fight Harith and his forces at the gates of Tekanuhawk, driving back Harith to flee to the Heart of Thorns. Knowing that Mordremoth's march has begun, the commander calls upon the guild and all the allies of the jungle to meet at Tarir to devise a strategy of immediate attack. Tizlak uses the Great Warbler, a new warbler, to notify the chain of New Hawk throughout the jungle of the meeting, and for allies to form. Similar to signal fires that you might remember from like Mulan, but this time just instead of fire, it's sound. Sign cutting would be replaced with gathering of petals. Calling a meeting in Tarir, the commander and all allies meet at the Luminat's throne. The commander, Kaith and the avatar of the Pale Tree, Marjorie, Bram, Canuck, Ritlock, Ibli, Tizlak, Ruka, the Luminate, and even Larenthir of the Wild has showed up alongside Casimir and Rox. The Pact is still weak, but they have mustered up enough recovered soldiers to assist in the final battle of Dragon's Stand. The Pale Tree discusses a plan of attack from the coastal area, where her seedling was once swept away. She knows it very well. And that she simply needs to be there to confront Mordremoth, though she does not say what her entire strategy is, as even she cannot trust all Sylvari. But Kaith is her only option and vessel to guide her to Mordremoth. Larenthir points out that scouts near the Dragon's Stand have reported a large worm-like beast guarding the Heart of Thorns, calling it the Mouth of Mordremoth, Mordremoth's actual dragon form. Larenthir suggests that he, Rox, and Casimir all help lead a three-pronged attack against Mordremoth's march to scatter the Mordrem and create a window of attack for the commander. The commander will take the guild, Ibli, Tizlak, and Ruka towards the coast to lead a strike against Mordremoth's castle to save Logan and Zoja and recover their long-lost friend Traherne. The time to attack is now. Act 4. In this write-up, Act 4 would start with sign cutting. Sign cutting starts off this act as the commander pushes their way through tangled depths once more, relying on local advice to get towards the coastal passage into Dragon's Stand. Through battling Mordrem and the native Chalk, the commander breaks through the ever-increasing threats and into Dragon's Stand's coast. Considering Dragon's Stand as a map is quite lore-heavy, and with this video pretty much focusing on the climax of the story, I thought it'd be fitting to touch a little bit on the Dragon's Stand map story as a whole. Dragon's Stand as a map still functions the same, but you can now waypoint between 3 of the waypoints: the northern coastal start, purely for story, the middle packed settlement, and the waypoint connected to the Chalk Garant Tunnel. Rox, Casimir, and Larenthir now spearhead each lane, providing orders and areas of safety in between pushes. Rox would take on Axemaster Harith, Casimir Stavemaster Adrian, and Larenthir would take on Blademaster Diarmid, all providing refreshing remarks to these enemies, as they have not yet fought these great knights. Aside from the Dragon's Stand map changes that I would implement, it continues, the main story, with March on Mordremoth. March on Mordremoth has the cast move down the coast of Dragon's Stand, fighting waves of stronger and stronger Mordrem, from bombers, Spitfires, mounted Mordrem, and champion-ranked mobs, stopping at increments to secure footholds for more reinforcements to catch up. Ibli and the Itzel secure the first area near the beginning. Ruka finds the Exalted Ruins and reactivates them to gain more Exalted allies, which then they secure the second point. And fighting to the third point, past the last of Mordremoth's defenses, to the very coast which is rendered in-game. Tizlak and the New Hawk secure the third point. All seems secure until Mordremoth's booming voice echoes for everyone to hear. not only just for the Sylvari. You cannot hide from me, sister. I can sense your heart. Axemaster then jumps from the height of the Heart of Thorns, armed with a thirsty axe. He dives straight for Kaith and the pale tree's vessel. Tizlak jumps in front of Kaith, pushing her aside with his large body, and dies. With Axemaster's axe slashing through his body, Mordremoth recalls her knight. Valiant Everard, my knight, but do not grow weary. We must prepare. Oh, sister, I do hope you survive long enough, only for me to be the one to take your heart. Axemaster Harith leaps up to the Heart of Thorns. Ibli, Ruka, and the guild gather around Tizlak's corpse, sorrowful and in shock of the brutality. They burn the body as the waves crash on the shore. I believed one element that was perhaps missing from Heart of Thorns was a newer character dying that has been with us for multiple story chapters. So having maybe one extra character die might be more impactful to the entire threat of Mordremoth. And what better way for Tizlak to die than in combat, valiant and courageous. Bitter Harvest. Bitter Harvest, establishing a new foothold in the open world. The commander utilizes the coast as a hub where there are a few reward merchants and portals to strike missions of this finale. Oh yes, I even thought of strike missions and actually have them fully scripted out. So if you would like to see a video where I go over possible strike missions for the Heart of Thorns expansion, comment below. I would appreciate it. While you're down there, subscribe, like, all stuff. These would unlock upon completion of the story fights. Canuck stays behind to prepare charges to blow up the Vine Gate leading to the Heart of Thorns. As the burning of Tizlak's body comes to its final ashes, the story mission Bitter Harvest is unlocked. Bitter Harvest works similarly to its in-game design. The commander and guild will venture to push towards to free both Logan and Zoja. Instead of taking a larger route towards the southeast of the map, 2 blighting trees guard the Heart of Thorns and act as the ramparts of the castle. Logan and Zoja also happen to be plugged directly into these trees and are sensed by Ritlock. Pushing up the hill and coast that leads to the Vine Gate of the blighting trees, the commander and members fight through more Mordrem and spot Fowlin in the distance, in her more realized Vine-Tooth form. Fowlin taunts the cast in the same manner that Diarmid did during Fowlin's chase. As a young-like animal, you mimic what you see. Breaking through the gate with Canuck's explosions, the decision of who to save first presents itself. Towards the end, after whichever one you go after first, after rescuing the 2 blighted friends, Fowlin drops down in front of the main entrance to the Heart of Thorns as her final stand, still in servitude to the avatar of Mordremoth. The battle ensues, and Kaith must slay the shadow of what was once her beloved Fowlin. The avatar of Mordremoth speaks again, commenting on the unfortunate destruction of her new puppet, Fowlin. Oh, what an unfortunate turn of events. Fowlin was such an expert hunter and gathered many for the army. It is a shame. I should have plugged her into a blighting tree just in case. Logan and Zoja are escorted to safety by Canuck, Ibli, and Ruka, back through the coastal route to return to Tarir and begin their healing. This leads to a story instance where the commander can take a break once more, talk with Kaith, Marjorie, Bram, and Ritlock, while also repairing armor and maybe buying some food and utility items to prepare for the final fights. The Thorns Knights. Prepared for the final fight, the commander, Kaith, Marjorie, Bram, and Ritlock burst through the gate to Mordremoth's tower, the Heart of Thorns. The group is faced with a towering double helix, churning the ley line magic beneath it. Battling through aggressive vines while dodging occasional falling thorns, the avatar of Mordremoth continues to speak to those inside her castle. Become part of me and endure. Accept your fate and find purpose in my hunt. Dear sister, it is unfortunate you could not walk your own self up to greet me. Always leaving me disappointed. Then, as they near the upper end of the helix, Mordremoth turns her attention to Marjorie and Bram. "Two of you have such brutal ideas of killing me. You will make fine additions as my knights." Directly to Marjorie, "I sense the spirit of a body I once choked long ago. Her neck was so smooth, a perfect canvas for blood." Directly to Bram, "Air, was it? I was rather upset to see her pass so soon. I had plans for her to sit atop my tower, sending arrows to resistant neighbors." As they reach the top of the helix, the guild jumps to either side where they take steps up to another level of the Heart of Thorns. Here, in a grotesquely ornate chamber, the three knights of Mordremoth, Diarmid, Hereth, and Adrian, stand in their unique blighting pods, preparing. The avatar of Mordremoth is seen spiraling upwards in the center of the chamber, in a whirl of bloodied leaves and vines. Here we get the full and first picture of the avatar of Mordremoth. I imagine her design would be using similar elements to the Harbinger of Mordremoth outfit with the crown and the shoulders, but perhaps a more elegant coat and gown of thorns and leaves and some ley-line pink-purple magic. The avatar of Mordremoth continues, "Oh my, how rude of me to greet such reputable guests so late in their time traversing my queendom." A back and forth ensues between Kaith the Pale Tree and the avatar of Mordremoth. "Enough! I shall not be disrespected in my own chamber. Adrian, Diarmid, Hereth, entertain these fools and paint this room with their blood. Keep that one," pointing to Kaith, "barely breathing." A multi-stage boss fight would ensue, Ritlock guarding Kaith in the Dome of the Mists to protect her and the Pale Tree. Fighting the three empowered knights of Mordremoth one at a time, they gain new abilities that can be viewed in the current Dragon Stand: a portal crush, spinnings, and axe trails. Once they are all downed, they quickly get back up with only 5% health each, where you must fight them all at the same time in their final attempt. With Bram and Marjorie being major characters in this fight, they deal the death blows to Hereth and Stave Master respectively, while the commander finishes Diarmid. With their desires for revenge fulfilled to an extent, the commander asks Marjorie and Bram to remain in the chamber to prevent any more Mordrem from assisting the avatar of Mordremoth, as Kaith, Ritlock, and the commander head up to the final battle. They gladly agree, and the final fight is just a staircase away. Hearts and minds. Keeping true with the motif of the heart and the mind, the finale of Heart of Thorns, A Tale of Two Queendoms, keeps the name Hearts and Minds, as the clash between the avatar of the Pale Tree and the avatar of Mordremoth is near. Ascending to the top of the Heart of Thorns, the commander, Kaith, and Ritlock discuss their worries, their anger, and their plan of attack, emphasizing that they hope the Pale Tree has one, as they're going in blind. Ritlock senses Traherne nearby. Reaching the apex of the tower, the commander and friends are exposed to the outside elements. A storm is whirling all around the coast of Dragon's Stand. The Pact can be heard fighting down below, keeping the mouth occupied. The avatar of Mordremoth is across the large platform, resting on a throne made of vine and thorn. Traherne at her side, anchored into a blighting pod. Mordremoth continues to talk to us, poking at the Pale Tree. The Pale Tree makes herself visible for a time, exclaiming, "Sister... Mordremoth, we have to end this." "No. You are trying to end what you started so long ago, but the shadow of us will stretch across these lands. Once I have your heart, we can be one again, and show everyone our dream," Mordremoth bellows. After more dialogue, the Pale Tree turns to the commander and says, "You all must weaken her, so that I may find a window to strike. Steel yourselves. She is coming." The fight against Mordremoth would be structured into 3 phases: Direct Assault, the Night's Echo, and Dream Collapse. Direct Assault. A very standard beginning. Mordremoth continues to chat while fighting the commander Keith and Ritlock, essentially learning Mordremoth's standard skill pattern and behavior. Lightning might occasionally strike the arena, and it would last until 50%. Then at 50%, we have the Knight's Echo. Mordremoth channels the reserved power of all 3 of her knights, gaining more skills. Blade Master Diarmid's Spin, Axe Master Harriet's ground-based Axe Trails, and Stave Master Adrian's AoE damage and CC. During Adrian's ability, the avatar of Mordremoth will now unlock her Defiance bar, gaining an opportunity to counter the CC and stun her for a few seconds. This would last until 20% health. Then reaching 20% health, the fight transitions into Dream Collapse. Reaching her final struggle, the avatar of Mordremoth enrages and changes the arena. She shoots the platform west on a large vine. The arena is now hovering over the ocean of Maguma, making it deadly to fall off. Updrafts might be around to play with the masteries. Becoming desperate, Mordremoth rips open a portal to the dream, surrounding the arena in a bubble of magic and wild energy. Visions from the commander's past pop up, Tybalt, Siren, etc. Here in this bubble of the dream, the pale tree fully materializes in this final stretch, assisting us with defensive boons and maybe some slight barrier application and shielding. To 10% health, the pale tree lunges at the avatar of Mordremoth. They begin to fuse in and out, becoming one entity and then splitting in 2. During this cycle of absorption and mitosis, rifts of magic pop in and out of the platform. The pale tree demands for us to close them to rip the avatar of Mordremoth's dream apart. With Ritlock's guidance of what he learned in the mists, he instructs us to focus our minds and block out all other senses. Tapping into the magic, Ritlock, Keith, and the commander close up to 5 or more rifts, and thus give the edge needed for the pale tree to collapse Mordremoth's dream forever and deliver the final strike to her thorny heart. Having seemingly slain the mind of Mordremoth, the mouth of Mordremoth also falls dead from the pack's assault. The cast heads down the extended vine, which now acts as a horizontal bridge holding up the previous arena, to rescue Traherne, who has regained consciousness. Traherne, Keith, and the pale tree all reunite, having a moment of touching reconnection. During these final words, the weak body of the avatar of Mordremoth sinks into the large vine and surges her way behind Traherne, stabbing him with a lance of bark through his heart, transferring the last seed of her into Traherne, while the avatar becomes petrified and dissolves away in leaves. With this seed being weak, Traherne's voice cries out to end this. He can feel Mordremoth taking a new form. With Khalidbolg beside him, the pale tree blesses the broken sword once more, and the commander takes the final blow to end their friend and kill Mordremoth once and for all. The magic explodes outwards, running wild. This final act gives a bit more of a reasoning as to how the dream comes about. We're not necessarily just going into Traherne's dream. It is Mordremoth herself ripping open a portal to her dream, or our nightmare, and we have to fight her there. A bit more interaction between the pale tree and Mordremoth, giving you this good versus evil motif, and eventually ending with Mordremoth just barely clinging on to life, transferring the seed and keeping in line with the normal narrative of us having to kill Traherne, but giving Khalidbolg a little final connection back to the Pale Tree, because Pale Tree made Khalidbolg, and it was her first and only weapon. After Act 4, one thing that was missing with Heart of Thorns was a more direct and complete epilogue. So I've taken the liberty of creating 2 more story instances for the epilogue. So, very first chapter I've made is Current's Flow. Current's Flow serves as a direct epilogue and falling action to the story of Heart of Thorns, where the commander and allies collect the fallen bodies and take them back to the coastal foothold, below the Heart of Thorns. Keith collects the turned bodies of Vinetooth Fowlin and makes the decision to burn the corpse. no longer seeing it fitting for this version of Fallon to exist in the world. A send-off of Traherne's body is initiated, where the avatar of the Pale Tree carries his body into the ocean of Maguma to drift off, the place where her own seedling once drifted so long ago. In doing so, the Pale Tree tells that she needs to return to her body to focus on recovery, for Kaith to bring back Khalidbolg, and wishes to speak with the commander soon. Here, the cast give their final remarks on the battle. Everyone from the push on the mouth of Mordremoth and also the coastal attack are here. Ibli and Ruka volunteered to take Tislak's hammer back to Kana Pahua to bring the news of the fallen hero back to the Newhawk tribe. They say they will also go back together to Tarir to return the newly reactivated Exalted, and then Ibli will take the Itzel back to Verdant Brink to bring news of the victory to his mother, Kana Miatli. They depart. The commander is left with the option to speak with his friends. Kaith points out that she hopes some of the recently turned Mordrem might be able to come to their senses in due time, but feels that for those who have long been under Mordremoth's grasp, they may have passed the point of no return. After currents flow, we have Repairing the Past. Repairing the Past. A few days pass, and the commander receives a letter from Ridheis, Traherne's student, which can be viewed in-game right now. She calls you to the grove, where she guides you through the memorial to Traherne, the big statue at the very entrance to the grove, and takes you to the Omphalos chamber. The Pale Tree is surrounded by menders and guards. She greets you once more. It is mentioned that Kaith has been tasked to a group of wardens to locate and guide lost Sylvari back to the grove, and find those who turned Mordrem in the local areas. The friendly exchange continues, and the Pale Tree reveals that she knew she would be the only one capable of tearing at the mind of Mordremoth. The cycle truly did live and die by its own hand. She's also thankful to see, through her own journey of being the freed seedling, she did not die at the same moment as Mordremoth, thanks to Ronan and Ventari, or blame it on Timey. She continues. She wishes for you to repair the sword of Khalidbolg. She says that the only weapon she has ever made still holds a future. She also tells that she has seen the value of better defending her children, and plans to take pieces from the reformed Khalidbolg to then make a few more weapons, thus giving a reason to the other weapon variants in this collection. Upon finishing Heart of Thorns, you gain access to the collection Knight of the Thorn, which would be renamed to Knight of the Heart, to start a journey of repairing Khalidbolg and other weapon variants. Once the collection has been completed, return to Ridheis in the Omphalos chamber to receive the unique title, Knight of the Heart. Thank you, hero. May light illuminate the sinister shadows Tyria is blighted by. End of Guild Wars 2, Heart of Thorns, A Tale of Two Queendoms, written by KROOF. So everyone, that's done with the script. I'm kind of going to go off script here and just talk. That was my overall outline to the major changes I would like to see in, or I would have written in if I was in control of the story and there was no budget and timing and all the other factors that go into a video game. I like to think of this as more of just like a very rough book outline, but I think I hit on a couple things that I was more so pointed out on and focused on with the narrative of Heart of Thorns, like the Knights of Mordremoth, Adrian, Diarmid, Harith. Also, the idea of Timey and the Dragon research not really going anywhere. I think it would be nice and useful. It would have been useful to actually have something in that instance that at least hints at the possible conclusion, which it didn't really do that all too much. And then getting to the conclusion where we're with Traherne. Traherne is just like, come into the dream. I can get you there. And we're like, oh, this was never really established. Maybe at like the very beginning of the beginning character when you make a Sylvari, but like other people can go in the dream. So at least by having Mordremoth rip open the dream, I think that could maybe make a little bit more sense, and maybe would have made a little bit more sense, of course. And of course, having an epilogue, I think would be really lovely to Heart of Thorns, the story of it. But yeah, this was mostly a video going over like the main plot points of like the exposition, the prologue, Act 1, Act 2, and then Act 3. I mostly focused on Act 3, going into that direct conflict and the direct theme and motif of like almost using a Mordremoth, the mouth of Mordremoth, and the pale tree as like symbolism to like the id, ego, and superego, the heart, the brain, and what the mouth actually does, what you feel, what you think, and your actual actions. So yeah, this is my full write-up of, not full entire write-up, I didn't do much dialogue, but overall write-up of the fan story. If I were to make a fan fiction for Guild Wars 2 Heart of Thorns, this was a tale of two queendoms. I actually do have a full script written up about possible strike missions for Heart of Thorns that I would have loved to have seen, but you know, always could be implemented, you know, I'm not gonna lie. So if you would like to say that once again, comment down below. Thank you everyone so much for coming. Comment below if you liked a couple of my ideas, one thing about this fanfic that you enjoyed, overall reactions. Do you like Heart of Thorns as it is? Would you like to have seen maybe a couple things changed? I did add a couple chapters to maybe make it a bit of a longer experience, as I think expansions deserve, etc, etc. Subscribe, comment, like, share, all of that stuff. If you'd like to pre-order End of Dragons, the 3rd expansion, and see how that story materializes, you can use my links down below. And I'll catch you all in the next video, Patreon, everything below. Bye everyone. Bye-bye.